Hello, welcome to Nintendo Nostalgia. It's Jacob and Josh, and we are here with a special mini episode today to talk to you guys about The Bear and the Bird. They're on the Nintendo Switch. It's surreal, Josh. I'm so excited. I mean, I'm gushing over this. I mean, to be for real frank with you, I got like Assassin's Creed, whatever, that dual pack for Christmas, and I completely dropped it for Banjo-Kazooie, a game that I played multiple times, but it's just so funny because night and day, like that game, it's fun to mess around in, but like I don't love it. Banjo-Kazooie I love, and like I'm addicted, and I'm playing it every night on my Switch, sometimes in handheld mode, sometimes on my TV with the 64 wireless pack controller. It's awesome. I'm in shock. This is a dream come true, and if I'm being honest, it only makes me more greedier and want more. Right. That's why we're here, man. We're here to talk about our experience with the Nintendo Switch Online Banjo-Kazooie. Take us away, Josh. What are you thinking about it being on Switch, on Nintendo for the first time since 1998? This is the second time the game's ever been re-released, I believe, yeah. And it's finally back on Nintendo. So, what do you think, man? How you feeling?
Yeah, it is pretty wild. I mean, it's been on Xbox and such since then, but it has been since '98 since this original game was on a Nintendo console. And that was the original version. We've had, the Wii Virtual Console, the Wii U, the little bit of Switch stuff, I guess, up until now. And even then, it took a little longer than we would have liked it to, since the Switch has been out for almost 5 years now. But we got there.
Insane, bro.
Yeah, I know. Getting old sucks, man. It's going fast.
It does fly, and it's weird to think that we should be getting a new system. In reality, if things were the old days, we should be getting a new system by now.
Yeah, when Banjo-Kazooie was announced for Smash, I think we all was kind of like hoping that this was coming, or some kind of new game, or maybe a collection or something. That didn't really happen, but we did at least eventually get this first game. And we'll get more into it, but I think it turns out pretty well. Even though it's just on that app, I do think this is a very solid port.
Yeah, I remember that the time when we got that direct showing off Banjo-Kazooie. I mean, I honestly, I was let down because I was hoping, we're gonna get Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, maybe Nuts and Bolts on Switch now, and there was nothing. Sakurai even said, go check out go get an Xbox if you want to play the game, and I felt like that was a real missed opportunity for the fact that they're in Smash and you're not putting these beloved characters back on your system. But, I mean, it's because the deals weren't all the way finished and cranked out, and now it is, and it's on the Switch. And I'll just start right out the gate. I'm smiling from ear to ear. The moment you see the Rare logo, or the Nintendo 64 logo, I think pops up first, and then it's the Rare logo. A little fact to our listeners, if you don't know this, Josh and I, we are a bit obsessed when it comes to Banjo-Kazooie. Like, I'm fans of games. I'm fans of Metroid. I'm fans of Zelda. I know the lore. Donkey Kong Country and Banjo-Kazooie, like, I'm obsessed. Like, I bought a $400 freaking statue of Banjo-Kazooie. I don't just buy a Metroid or, Samus. I don't just buy one, okay? This game, it emotionally means a lot to me from my childhood. I love it. I connect with it a lot. Josh and I We were talking about that today. So, and I'll just be frank, man. There's been no better way to play Banjo-Kazooie than on Nintendo. I had played the Xbox version a long time ago. I borrowed Ryan's, and man, I just didn't feel the same. Didn't feel right. Not the way it is with the 64 controller. And Nintendo in general. But Banjo-Kazooie was initially made for Nintendo by Rare. A lot of people don't realize that Banjo-Kazooie was a Nintendo IP. It was owned outright by Nintendo. Rare made it for them. Nintendo let them create their IP, but for Nintendo, if that makes sense. Rare borrowed Donkey Kong. Rare had other IP that they made, but Rare specifically made Banjo-Kazooie for Nintendo. So when the buyout happened way back when, Nintendo decided to give them back Banjo-Kazooie. It's kind of like a, hey, thank you for everything you've done. Parting ways, you can have Banjo-Kazooie back, and we want everything Donkey Kong back. And that's what happened, unfortunately, which was stupid by Nintendo's part. But, fast forward to the future, and here we are. It's back on Nintendo, and Josh, I love it. I always envisioned, I just wanted to be able to say I could play Banjo-Kazooie portably. I will say, it sucks that I know that I can't take it like in my car. Like if I leave, like, oh, we're gonna go to the store or something. I want to keep playing it, but I guess unless I have a hotspot attached to my Switch, because you have to be online to play it, correct?
I think actually you can. I forget how that works. It's that app. I think it checks in. I'm not sure if it's daily or every time you boot it up. Exactly how that works. I'm pretty sure you can play that portably, like if you're out somewhere. Because I think I've done it with my Super Nintendo app previously.
I can leave my house and not be attached to the internet.
Yeah. As far as I'm aware, because I'm pretty certain I've played a lot of those virtual console games.
Okay, I didn't realize that. I thought I had to be connected to the internet to get to the Switch online. Wow. Okay.
No, you can play it offline. Like I said, I don't know how long. Like if you went on vacation or something, and it wasn't hooked up to Wi-Fi for a week, it might flip out. I'm really not sure. I might have to look that up. But yeah, you should be fine.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I'm excited now. Yeah. Well, take away. I keep talking, Josh. Just dive into the game. Let's go. Let's talk about what is Banjo-Kazooie like on Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, so I mean, if you've played the N64 version, it's pretty much that, but it looks a bit better. So, for one, I've played through the whole Xbox version, as well as the N64 and all of that, and it's nice to have it in HD again, but the original version of it. So, like Jacob was saying, it almost doesn't feel quite right on the Xbox. It's not a terrible port. A lot of things. There's some things that are actually a little bit better. I'll touch on those real quick on that. They did add the stop and swap into the Xbox version, and it connects to 2E on there and nuts and bolts. It's not anything huge, but it's just cool that it's there. And I believe widescreen, a couple other little things, like you don't have to recollect the notes, which some people, honestly, I've heard like it better the original way anyway. But yeah, outside of that, though, one weird thing on the Xbox one that I've had to deal with, or that I dealt with, was as soon as it boots up, like where the N is, and it's got that little jingle, where the N's supposed to be walking across. There's just absolutely nothing. It's just a clear sky for like an awkward few seconds. And then the little xylophone comes out later, and it says Microsoft on it. And I don't know if it's just where I grew up with the Nintendo one, but it just doesn't look quite right.
Nope.
There's little things like that. And I know this is very nitpicky, but like Jacob said, we've dug into the nitty gritty of this stuff. The little life meter icon and some of the chat icons, when they're talking, just have a weird, like, glossy sheen to them. Mm-hmm. They don't quite look right.
Right.
Banjo's and Kazooie's looks a little bit disturbing, even on the life meter. I just don't like it. But again, this NSO version, it goes back to the original look. It goes back to that style. All the Nintendo references are back. So that's all great. It feels like it was made, which of course it was, for the N64 controller. So if you have one of those in NSO, then you're good. I haven't really played it without that, but having played the Xbox version, I don't imagine it being too bad. And you just really end up missing those C buttons more than anything. Trying to substitute those with that stick just doesn't quite feel natural. But yeah, I mean, it runs great. Not to just stick to the comparisons, but something else on that Xbox version for Kazooie and Tooie, the opening cutscenes in particular, it happens at different parts, but you'll notice like the synchronization for the sound and what's happening on the scene are way off.
Right.
Like it's just bad. Like I can't believe they released it like that.
Right. Yeah.
But back on this version, it seems to be perfectly fine. Everything was lined up correctly. The opening cutscene was fine. No problems. So I have to say this seems to be a pretty good emulation. And I know the N64 can be kind of tricky with that. I know there's been some critics on the NSO, how it emulates some games. But for this so far, and I've played up to, where did we get to? Bubble Loop Swamp, I believe, last night or the night before. And I haven't ran into any issues on this one. Again, it's the N64 original, but looks a little bit better. And you've got save states if you want to use that. So yeah, there's really nothing I can complain much about. I'm not going to get into the price of NSO and all of that on here. I'm on the family plan anyhow. So, you do have to work your way through that paywall, so to speak, to get there. But, if you're there, I think this is probably the best way to play this game personally.
Yeah. Well, you go to those cut screens real quick. They, I think the original 64 had some like slow down issues, like with rendering it all. So they had to adjust it so it would like fit it perfectly. And they didn't do that for the Xbox version. That's why everything was off. And then they just brought it back. It just feels like they brought the true port of what we originally had back from our childhood on this, which I think is why it feels the best. It looks good. It looks crisper than it ever has. It sounds great. The transitions are great. The way they move, everything, the emulation of it is really good. It's one, I think, better than what it was when the Switch Online first came out. So I feel like we've seen improvement there. I think that overall, I'm really happy with the experience. It's just really cool to visit my favorite game of all time back on a current Nintendo system. And I think, what is this? What does this do for the future of Banjo-Kazooie? Are we going to get Tooie, Josh? Does this open the door to maybe get even like some more remakes, or not remakes necessarily, but re-releases? Maybe Nuts and Bolts get put up on Nintendo. Not on that, but like maybe Nuts and Bolts does come over for a purchase. I mean, they calculate all this stuff. If they see everyone's playing Banjo-Kazooie, why wouldn't they? You know what I mean? It's just money for both people. So I'm just excited, but I want to keep my expectations in check. Calm me down, Josh. Send a fan my way. Cool me down, to make sure that things are. I'm not getting that too crazy here. What do you think the future holds?
Well, I will say, kind of logically, you would think, yeah, we should get Tooie. We should get the whole thing. We should get the Rare Replay, maybe like a Nintendo-esque version of it with a little Game Boy Advance games in there or something splashed in, that sort of thing. I think that would sell just fine. I think there's a lot of buzz around the series, compared to what it has been in the past.
Right.
I think it'd be a great time to do it. This is Nintendo, so I don't know if we'll even get Tooie on this app.
Oh, man, we better get Tooie. You have to.
So I think it could happen if they keep up, like releasing at least an N64 game a month. I know that's kind of drip feeding it, but I would hope they would get to that. Diddy Kong Racing, all of that sort of thing. So yeah, I would really hope. This seems like a great time to even come out with like a new game in this series. And I know there's a big power difference between the Xbox and the Switch, but the Series X rather. But maybe even release it on both. I think most of this crowd is on Nintendo consoles still.
They are. The truth. I've said it the whole time.
Be it like us older guys, or honestly, kind of the more casual. This sounds kind of I don't mean this in a negative way. I was going to say the more like the kid-friendly crowd. It just seems like it fits more on a Nintendo console next to Mario.
It does.
Like it was intended to be.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm very glad to have it back on there. And I've been mostly playing through it this time with my daughter, so I'm going a little slower than I had been. But,
where are you guys at in the game?
We just made it to Bubble Gloop Swamp the other night. We have gotten everything in the first 3 worlds before that. We've been jumping back and forth. She doesn't like swimming.
Oh, especially when when the shark comes after you.
Yeah. So Clanker's Cavern was pretty much all me. But it's been great again. It can be, especially if you've grown up with. There's some things in it that have aged a little bit. If you've grown up with more modern games, you'll notice a little bit of a difference. But I don't think it's particularly that bad. Granted, again, I grew up with it, but I still don't think I can think of games that's aged a lot worse.
Oh, totally. Well, that talking about aging, the game looks how I remembered it. It like Banjo-Kazooie compared to Mario 64. Like Mario 64 is very polygonal. Very sharp edged. The characters, you can just tell this is like early generation for the game for that era. And Banjo-Kazooie, they look like full on 3D models. Yes, there's some. If you look close enough, you see the polygonal shapes. But overall, like I feel like Banjo has a round nose, and they just look good. It looks good. It looks fresh and bright and colorful. All of Banjo-Kazooie, I'm just reliving my nostalgia, and I'm going through the hub world, and it's just this one massive world. And I loved how you had transformation. You had a continuation of collecting your jiggies and your notes and continuing on in the level. It wasn't point A to point B like Mario 64. And I remember as a kid, it's kind of silly now because like I'm such a completionist, so I try not to leave a level until I have everything. Mumbo skulls, honeycombs, which I will admit, my memory is not remembering everything. I've had to look up a few. Those honeycombs are hidden. They're hidden.
Yeah, those are.
I've had to look up at least 3 of them to figure out where they are, and I'm not proud of it. I hate when I have to look something up. I wish this old nostalgic brain could remember everything, but I had to look up some of those. I even had to look up a Jiggy last night in Freeze Easy Peak, and I was so mad at myself because once I see it, I'm like, oh my gosh, dang it. Yeah, I know that. Why did I couldn't remember it? It was the one in the spoilers, the pipe in the snowman. I forgot that there was a Jiggy in the pipe. I had everything else but that one. And so the game it runs and feels just like how it did, and I feel like it's the late 90s again, and I love it. I do. And that Christmas level, man, totally reminds me of Diddy Kong Racing, the winter levels. It's the same developers. I wouldn't be surprised if those houses that are sticking up, the Christmas houses, are the same houses you see in Diddy Kong Racing. Would not be surprised if they're the same models.
Yeah, you can definitely tell some similarities between those two, which is another game I desperately hope they move over to the NSO. But yeah, it's like you said, it's running perfectly. There's not much to complain about on that. It made me think of when they moved Donkey Kong 64 to the Wii U a few years back.
Yeah.
It unfortunately, I like that game. I don't feel like that emulation was very good. It kind of had the same issue with the cutscenes that the Xbox version of Banjo does. Some things, they didn't take that slowdown into consideration like Rare did back in the day.
Right.
Some things were more difficult than they were supposed to be. And it was very dark.
Yep.
But I'm glad to see whatever they're doing now differently with these games turned out as well as it did.
I think, I know it's been a drip feed right now, but honestly, who knows? I feel like maybe the more that they get I think maybe it's a drip feed not to be slow, but maybe to crank out the issues that they've been dealing with. And then, hopefully we start to see more and more come down the pipeline. And I don't think that they would just stop with Banjo-Kazooie from Rare Games. I mean, there's just too many key game. Now, I'm not saying they'll send Conker's Bad Fur Day over, but I think that they would definitely give us the hits like Diddy Kong Racing and Banjo-Tooie. I believe it's been rumored that GoldenEye will come, and I'm all for it. The 64 would not be half of the system that it was without Rare, and the system was a struggling system to sell, which is weird to think because I feel like everyone had a 64 back in the day. Funny how our childhood brains shape things.
Yeah, it feels like it with me. I know people I grew up with had a 64. We played most of the same games and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I still think, again, we got nostalgia for it. I still think it's way better than the PlayStation. But
I do too. I mean, I think it holds up to that proof of that. And like, look at the library of games. I don't know. People were just ready for some. PlayStation could offer some experiences that people hadn't seen ever at the time. So that's what it was.
Well, with this game, again, one of the last things I wanted to at least add is I know more people have played Mario 64 than Banjo. It's kind of like the same story with Mario Kart 64 and Diddy Kong Racing. I think Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, I think these are great. And I've gone back to them over the years.
Yeah.
Time and time again, they're usually pretty easy to access anyhow. But it's kind of like with Rare with Banjo here. And with Diddy Kong Racing, I feel like they just did just a wee bit more, just a little bit better, and sort of their own flavor with the world and the characters and all of that. At the time, it was sort of something that we hadn't seen much before, especially like on a Nintendo platform, something so story heavy for one. As silly as it is, but it's kind of like a Saturday morning cartoon almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right, my friend. The game is I hope it just sparks more life, brings more new fans into it. And, it'd be awesome if future iterations of Banjo could come to Nintendo. I don't know. A big part of my deep fear is that Xbox is playing so nice with everybody right now to then one day they're going to be exclusives only. You want this stuff now, you got to come here, and...
Right.
Which, if they can make, to be honest, all they've ever had to do was make a legit Banjo-Kazooie 3D platformer that was awesome, I would buy it. I would buy the system just for that game. It would be my first non-Nintendo system ever that I went out and got. But hey, who knows? But other than that, Josh, any final thoughts on the Nintendo Switch Online? For Banjo-Kazooie.
No, not right. No, not really anything we haven't already said. It's a great port. It's possibly the best way to play it, especially if you have that N64 controller.
Yes, definitely.
If you're able to get a hold of one. I know they're kind of ridiculous to get a hold of, but yeah, I would definitely, especially if this is like your first time, I think this is a great way to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And, go in expecting, if you played Mario 64, go in kind of expecting something like that, but
better.
Definitely with its own flair. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can say that because Mario 64, up until Odyssey, had been my favorite video Mario game of all time. But, in some ways it still is. But, the game's great, guys. If you haven't played it, go try it out. Go test it out. It's a treat. See why we're obsessed with it. I know some people hate the scribble talk, but I think it's part of the game. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I yawned. But other than that, I love the game. Josh, maybe to cap us out, why does Banjo-Kazooie mean so much to us? Because we were talking about this earlier. To me, I grew up on a farm. I grew up in Indiana. I come from a background of farmers, and I think Banjo-Kazooie really resonates with me because of Spiral Mountain. There's a lot of farm life in there, and no, I didn't grow up in the mountains like good old Josh here, but it just made me think of home and made me feel like I could relate to Banjo. I know Banjo's not the brightest bulb out there, and sometimes I don't feel like I'm the brightest bulb. But I just related to him, and it just reminds me of home. It reminds me of my childhood when my parents just sold their farm, and my grandparents had a farm. It just brings me back to that. It felt like it was like a little slice out of this large world of a little slice out of my world. And that's why I connect to Banjo-Kazooie so much. And it's funny to think that I didn't even own the game. My friend Brad Hunzinger owned the game, and I played it with him a ton, and I eventually beat it when he let me borrow it, start my own file at home until I beat it, So I love this game. I love this series and this franchise, and I hope we get more of it, more rightfully justified good versions of it. And Josh, why does Banjo mean so much to you?
I mean, a lot of the first part is very similar to mine. We had talked some about this earlier. You'd grown up sort of like around that farmy kind of area. And driving through Indiana, it seems like 80% of it is corn.
Yeah.
so I believe that. But no, I grew up like in between mountains, pretty much. A lot of woods and all that kind of thing around me. So it oddly kind of felt similar to that. But it's very, I'm in West Virginia, it's kind of country, so there's a splash of that in there, especially with a lot of banjo music. It's not as crazy as it sounds in West Virginia, but it still feels kind of homey. But yeah, that, and it was another game I think I'd played through with my dad at the time. I was sort of at that age where I just have a lot of nostalgia for that time period. And I've kept up with the series pretty much since it's began since then.
Yeah.
I kind of collected a bunch of junk related to it.
Yeah.
I know Jacob has as well. I was Mumbo Jumbo for Halloween in like third grade. I think it was third or fourth grade, whatever year that was, fourth grade maybe. My grandma made like a suit from the Nintendo Power Plush. Like she used that as a model.
So cool, Grandma.
Me and Jacob were actually the same. We were at his house when it got announced for Smash, and that was all fun, exciting, and stuff. So, it's just been sort of an old favorite of mine that stuck with me.
Yep, it's good franchise, and I hope many more people can be reintroduced to it, or see it for the first time. So. But, other than that, guys, that's all we have. Go check it out and let us know what you think about Banjo-Kazooie in general, and if you had any history with it before, or if this is your first time. But we appreciate you all, and we will be back again in the near future. Everyone have a blessed one.
Bye.
Bye.